We took a break in August after catching up with our 2020 readers, and we are now back to our original schedule of hosting every other month. And so we will conduct our next Sunday Salon reading on November the 21st, which is the weekend before Thanksgiving, if you want to make a note of that. We are so pleased to have you join us this evening, and we jointly welcome our talented readers, Jeremy Owens. Jeremy, please raise your hands so when I call your names, everybody knows. Sarah Rosenblum, E Hughes, and Amin Ahmad. They will be reading in that order. After the readings, we encourage you to stick around for a Q&A with our authors who will take questions from the audience. So let's jump right in. We are happy to introduce Jeremy Ashley Owens as our first reader for the evening. And I would like to expand on his modest one-line bio we've been promoting thus far. Jeremy Owens is the creator, producer, and host of You're Being Ridiculous, which can be found at www.yourbeinglidiculous.com, and I've just put that in the chat for everyone. In essence, Jeremy runs the joint, to quote his own words. You're Being Ridiculous is a long-running Chicago live-lit storytelling show, most recently featured at Steppenwolf Theater. Jeremy's work has appeared in storytelling shows Story Jam at Ragdale Ring, Writers' Night, Essay Fiesta, Filet of Solo Theater Festival, Story Club Chicago, The Paper Machete, That's All She Wrote, and many bars and theater spaces all over the city. His writing has also been featured in Chicago Magazine, Alma, The Axis Magazine, and others. He has taught storytelling as a writer in residence at Right On, Door County, Story Studios Chicago, Highland Park High School's Focus on the Arts program, Layton High School Writers Week, Baker Demonstration School, Northwestern Summer Writers Conference, Northeastern Illinois University, and Story Studios Chicago's Writers Festival. He teaches LGBTQ and queer nonfiction writing and storytelling at Story Studios Chicago. Jeremy is a graduate of the University of Arkansas, Fayetteville, and has an MFA in performance from Roosevelt University in Chicago. His solo show, My Big Gay Fairy Tale, was scheduled to premiere at Steppenwolf in the summer of 2020. Please welcome Jeremy Owens.
You got me with that bio. I was like, what?
Floor is yours.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I'm excited to be here. When it comes to pain and suffering, I'm right up there with Elizabeth Taylor. I say while flinging myself back in my chair, tossing my legs out to the side and throwing the back of my hand up to my forehead as if I'm a 19th century actress landing on a fainting couch. I've had a couple drinks, so my personality is currently a 13 out of 10, and this wild Sarah Bernhardt impersonation is my clumsy attempt at flirting. What? He says this, and my body breaks out into a sweat. I'm sweating in places I didn't know were possible. Am I hot? Am I cold? He's just asked me about my family and either doesn't get my reference or can't hear me. I'm hoping that it's just that he can't hear me. It can't be that he doesn't know I'm quoting Steel Magnolias. Are there gay people who don't know every line to the movie Steel Magnolias? I can't sit at a table with a person who doesn't get references to Steel Magnolias. The American education system really is a disappointment. My inner voice interrupts to wag its finger at me and yell, "Be present." Getting out of my head is a difficult task since this gay sports bar we're in has decided to underscore our conversation with Britney Spears. It's 2006. This is before shaved head Brittany and crying with Matt Lauer Brittany. None of us know what we're in for in just a few short months. Right now, though, in this moment, most of America adores her. She's our queen. I like Brittany too. I just wish she would maybe sing a little softer or shut up altogether or replace herself with smooth jazz or classical piano or Frank Sinatra. I don't know. What's a nice calming background sound to accompany an accidental date? I need ocean sounds or maybe a nice howling and continuous wind. No, Enya. Enya would be nice. No, that's a terrible idea. Is that a soccer game on TV? Rugby? Gay sports bars are so confusing. Do people come here and watch these games or are they just looking at all these thighs? Wait, do I have to pee? I'm on a date. I mean, I think I'm on a date. This was not supposed to be a date, but here we are drinking sangria and being force-fed Britney Spears and having a conversation about our families just one level below screaming in a gay sports bar in front of a plate of boneless chicken wings I'm too nervous to eat. And Jiminy Christmas, there are a lot of thighs on these televisions. This night was supposed to be a fun Monday night hangout with coworkers. It was going to be me, my friend Ashley, and our manager, Andy. We were going to drink our weight in sangria, eat bar food, and complain about the joys of working in restaurants. A perfect night. But then Ashley cancels at the last minute. Sorry, guys, I can't make it tonight. My mom's insisting on having dinner with me, she texts. I panic the second I see her message, feeling the weight of being alone with another man in a gay bar. Oh, should we reschedule, I ask? You better not cancel on me. This text is coming from Andy, and I die 1,000 deaths while reading his response over and over again. My phone becomes a hot potato in my hand as I stand there staring at the message, unsure of what to say. So I toss it across the room and squeal, "This is a setup!" It feels like the universe is conspiring against me or for me. There is definitely a conspiracy afoot. After years of living like some sort of gay nun, I am hours away from going on an accidental date with a coworker. Just be cool. I tell my empty studio apartment, just be cool. And I am the coolest, most chill when I text back. See you soon, all caps, because I am enthusiastic, but also terrified. Then just like that, I am in a gay sports bar across the table from this guy I've had a crush on for months. It's better that it's happening this way. I had to be forced into this. Otherwise, I would never have figured out how to make this date happen. It's not the sort of thing gay nuns know how to manage. When it comes to pain and suffering, I'm right up there with Elizabeth Taylor, I say. Yeah, a little more southern, next to Pinch, Dolly Parton South. He laughs this time, goodness. But then he says, seriously though, tell me about your family. Funny how quickly this accidental first date has transformed into an accidental 5th date or 12th date, 20th date. What number date is it where you talk about your family? I haven't had a lot of dates. Maybe this is what one does on a first date. Sangria has me feeling brave, and Brittany is screaming stronger than yesterday. And I lean all the way into all of this and say, that's what I mean. My family is a doozy. It's true. My family is complicated. All families are, which is great. I just don't make a habit of discussing mine, especially not on the first date. I'm not sure why I'm trying to make rules for the date at this exact moment, especially since the sangria has me so relaxed. I might slither right out of this chair and far, far away through the drain in the floor. The drinks have me ready to talk, but there's something else here. He has me calm and open and ready to share. I want to tell him about my family. I want him to know about my life. He is mature and has it together, and it's attractive. He is attractive. Take me, I think, while trying not to launch myself across the table at him. Take me away and take care of me. I am tipsy, and that's the alcohol talking, but also I know this date is different. This is it. This is maybe the one. I want a life with him and a dog and a house and adult things like dishes and cars and maybe some nice stationery with our names on it and his bathroom sinks. So instead of letting up, instead of running away, I remind myself a person can't be a gay nun forever and decide to tell the truth, even if it's weird. My biological mom died when I was 9. I often growing up. I wince after telling him. It's not that I think he's going to run out of the room screaming. It's just that I could maybe have started in a better place. For instance, we're originally from Arkansas, but my parents live in St. Louis now. Or maybe my dad used to be a cotton and rice farmer. I could at the very least have started off with a living relative. No, my biological mother is dead. I hope you're taking notes. This is exactly how a person becomes and stays a gay nun for the rest of his life. Oh God, I'm sorry, he says. It's okay, I tell him. I mean, I'm okay. Wait, I mean, I'm not really okay, but I'm okay, you know? My dad remarried a year later. Great. Now I sound like I'm comparing my mother to an old sock. It's okay, I got a new mom. Dead people are so annoying. It's impossible to talk about them without tripping all over yourself. It's okay though, because there's more. My mom, my new one, I guess you could call her my stepmom, except we don't use that term. She had 2 boys from her previous marriage. Yeah, she's divorced. One of them 3 years older than me and another 3 years younger. Oh, and I have a sister. She's my biological sibling. She was 9 months old when my biological mom died. Then just before my 16th birthday, my older brother was killed in a car accident. I rattled this off like a drunk person reading a grocery list. And there's a momentary pause after where I can see he's unsure of what to say. I can't believe I didn't skip over the dead people. But the sangria has made it impossible for me to make good choices or keep anything to myself. Andy's silence is so loud, and this pause in our conversation, though probably tiny, feels big enough to drive an 18-wheeler through sideways. I know I'm doing this all wrong, but I just keep talking. The best part, I say, while laughing to myself, what makes it even more fun is my biological mom's birthday is New Year's Eve. And she died on Valentine's Day. That wasn't enough though. So a few years later, my stepbrother died a week before my 16th birthday, right before Thanksgiving. It's great how they went ahead and ruined holidays for me forever. I'm laughing because that's how defensive mechanisms work. And well, I might be drunk, and also because, oops, I did it again. It's now blasting through the speakers. I think I've successfully murdered this date. I'm not even sure it's happening. And then he says, but you're so normal. I'm laughing again because even though I've done everything wrong, I am smart enough to understand crying would definitely be the worst thing to do right now. This is maybe the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me. It's disarming. He's listening to me. He's really listening to me. I don't know what one is supposed to talk about on a first date. I don't know what's right or normal. I don't know how to be anything other than me, especially here underneath all of the sangria. But I do know this is the first time someone has bothered to point out I survived. I don't think that's what he's meaning to tell me. But what I heard was, look at you, doing okay on the other side of all of that. Somewhere in the middle of processing what he has said and my choice to drink most of the picture of sangria alone, he takes my hand in his. He does this and my brain melts. This is definitely not a traditional first date. I'm sitting in a chair across from a man I instantly fell in love with, and Brittany is still droning on, and there are cold, boneless chicken wings and the dregs of a pitcher of sangria and a dead mother and brother hovering in the air around us, and so many rugby thighs in front of me, and my brain is now mashed potatoes. I did everything wrong. I broke all the rules, but it's okay because he is still here. I am on a date. He tells me about his big and loud Jewish family and how he can't wait for me to meet them. I love this moment because now we've both trashed the first date rule book. But what he doesn't know is it's me. I am the one who cannot wait. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Oh, Jeremy, that was so good.
Hey, sorry, my unmute took a while.
Jeremy, I love your stories always. That is incredibly sweet and poignant. Thank you for sharing that story. I love your haircut. Looks great.
Thank you.
So I have the pleasure of introducing our next reader, who is Sarah Terez Rosenblum. Her work has appeared in lit mags such as Diagram, Brevity, Third Coast, and Carve. She's written for sites including Salon, The Sun Times, Pop Matters, and she was a runner-up for Prairie Schooner's annual creative nonfiction contest. She's Pushcart Prize nominated. She has an MFA from the School of the Art Institute in Chicago. She's a creative coach and developmental editor, and she teaches creative writing at Story Studio and the University of Chicago Writers Studio. Her novel, Herself When She's Missing, which is a great title, was called Poetic and Heartrending by Booklist. Please welcome Sarah.
Hey, you guys. I think my story is a slightly different vibe from Jeremy's. Not maybe I'm going to bring the room down a little bit. We'll see. And it is fiction. So I'm going to go ahead and start reading. This is called Ajar. Karn's kid wakes me from a dream in which I'm folding 40 jumpsuits. Bedclothes are balled beneath Karn, and my shorts rise high on my thighs. It's the whole neighborhood, Karn says after his kid's cell phone light sweeps us, and they've thumped downstairs to the fuse box. That explains my sound machine's silence. I stop fumbling for its buttons, feeling for the plug in the wall. He needs to knock. Now that I'm awake, my arms start itching. He was scared. He thought he broke something. In the bathroom, Karn rummages for the calamine lotion, walls and ceilings made watery by the glow from his phone. Do you think it's the laundry detergent? I ask. It's seasonal. Karn dabs near my forearm. Without the air conditioning, the attic bedroom is humid. Why am I awake for this? When the power's out, I say, sleeping people don't need to know. Karn sets the bottle on the nightstand. For 5 years, it's been just me and him. The first night here, I found the back door open. My dream is like that. Darkness beyond the threshold. Doors swung wide when I know I left them closed. Karn's son had set all the lights blazing, and my eyes took their time adjusting. Just like in my dream, something was altered. I stood framed in the doorway. If someone was watching, they had a clear view. At 5 a.m., the garbage truck wakes Karn, and he rolls to face me. The power's still off, or all that clashing metal would drown in the sound machine's sigh. Have you seen that Louis C.K. sketch where the trash collectors are in bed with him, I ask? The skin around Karn's eyes is puffy. It's 2020, he says. We're not supposed to like him. From the dresser, he picks the red shirt with the pizza slice. Please don't eat me. I love you, it reads. Downstairs, Karn will have just enough time to grab a protein bar and clap on his headphones before his first meeting. I still have the points of reference. From the top of the stairs, I call out to him. Am I supposed to blowtorch the memories from my mind? During the day, I don't worry Karn's kid will walk in on me. In the summertime, his sleep cycle migrates. Normally, Karn stacks activities against it, School of Rock, skateboard camp, but this year, no one's going anywhere. In September, school will be virtual. Even so, Karn will fight to wake him. I don't envy either of them, long days of screen time, though Karn was remote when this began. Today, hours pass before I think to miss Karn. Outside ice cream trucks and the racket of construction, Soon the leaves will reach their thickest, the wind through them a harbinger of fall. Around 6 p.m., I hear Karn showering in the downstairs bathroom. Then he's bashing pans and singing the song about ways she might develop higher self-esteem. When Karn's son wakes, he recites that list of items he wants: desk with dual monitor arms, 2 1440p ultra-wide monitors, Astro wireless headset. His footfalls vibrate the floor. Let's start with you cleaning up those ramen wrappers, Karn says. See how generous that makes me feel. By the time Karn shouts dinner, the light outside's gone golden. Burgers served on the patio, and Karn with a dark beer in his hand. Karn's kid is talking this time when I swim into waking, torn at the throat t-shirt and top knot askew. Remember when we went for pizza on Mom's birthday? Grandpa got so mad at Bailey, he said, if he wasn't my grandson, I'd stomp him. Like if Bailey was just some kid he met on the street. All these books fell, Karn says, after he's walked his kid downstairs and settled him. That's why he woke us? I scratch one arm, then the other. He was scared. It looked like a poltergeist. Why does he tell that same story, I ask? Even the dog has it memorized. He falls into poison ivy. His mom rescues him. This is before she goes to work, and then everyone heads to Martellini's. His cousin swears at a waitress when the pizza comes without extra cheese. Hands on hip, Karn's lit from behind by the computer he built. It's natural to miss his mother. The CPU fan is an LED rainbow that pulses as if the machine can breathe. My second night downstairs, I heard Karn's kid giggling. Same laugh since he was an infant. Magic elf stuff in the daytime. Disturbing when rooms are empty. And down the hall, there's a half-open door. As in my dream, I patted my pockets, but my phone was elsewhere. In movies, you beg the girl not to. But if she doesn't walk toward the door, then she can't pull it closed. At 6 a.m., I reach for the sound machine. Karn's claimed my side of the bed. You know Casper and Chip the Cup and that cat Binks from Hocus Pocus, I say? Karn stretches. My sister was obsessed with Bette Midler. She worried Hocus Pocus would bomb at the box office, so she drew promotional flyers. We delivered them to people's homes. If I pressed my face to Karn's neck, he'd smell like morning. Weird that we're not allowed to see movies, he says. Movies are a relic from a life I've stopped living, so distant from my experience that it doesn't matter theaters are closed. Later, Karn steps into a torn pair of Levi's. What was that stuff you were saying about Casper? Before he was a ghost, I say, he was a kid who died of pneumonia, and Chip in Beauty and the Beast was enchanted. He wasn't cute when he turned back into a boy. Is this about Robin? Karn looks impatient. He points downstairs where we both know the kid will sleep till day wanes. I trail Karn to the stairway. You have your job. Our experiences are too separate. We're all suffering the consequences. Karn glances at his cell phone. He's hoping for coffee. Listen, I call after him. Are you too perfect to hate what you can't have? Downstairs, his desk will be lined with empty soda cans. Each morning, I once cleared his debris. Today, I might fold laundry. Years in retail left me with a method. T-shirt face down, pleat each side in vertically, fold in thirds horizontally, and voila. I could use the distraction, and Karn just lets clean clothing pile up. From the stairway, I see heaping baskets, but the stained glass sunlight knifes through the living room. The idea of folding makes me feel invaded, my body not mine to control. Upstairs, hours pass, and it's not Karn I'm missing. Even when we fight, it's easy to love him. It was never my job to shape who he becomes. After 6 p.m., I hear the downstairs shower turn off. Your jars are so powerful, Karn tells the dog. You make the family proud. Why are people angry if wearing masks will help save people? Robin asks. Karn's the kind of dad who thinks through his answers. In the pause, I hear distant sirens. Sometimes, he says, it's easier to feel anger than loss. If Robin responds, it sinks beneath the sound of sizzling. Karn's making chicken wings. He knows I hate the stink of it. Peanut oil in our hair and our clothes. That night, I dream I'm folding jumpsuits. When I emerge from the back room, the door to the shop stands open. I don't go back for my phone. Soon I'm framed in the doorway. I've nearly closed it when the man comes through. Later, he points at my forearms. What's wrong with you? He set down his knife so he can buckle and zip. We were at the park and my son fell in some poison ivy. I say, if this were a movie, I'd keep talking to humanize myself. Tell him it's my birthday. Say I like extra cheese on my pizza, then go for the knife. But it's my dream, and the man's not listening. When he lunges, I'm plunging my arms into poison ivy. I'm reaching for Robin. He skinned his knee in the park when he fell. This time when Robin wakes me, Karn keeps sleeping. My body itches, Robin says. On the landing, he's shirtless. We need to get your sleep cycles back on schedule. I uncap the calamine. He's 12, but he still pouts, like when he was 7. I don't want to. Why? I beckon. Because nighttime's when you visit me downstairs. Dad's right. I guess it's seasonal. What I feel last is Robin's skin beneath my hands. It's 6:30 when Karn's alarm vibrates. You would have been 40 today, he says. Sit.
Sarah, that was so powerful and moving. Thank you so much. I'm just blown away. Thank you. Now I'm going to introduce our third reader, the excellent poet, E Hughes. I need my glasses. E Hughes is a PhD student in the program for writers at the University of Illinois at Chicago. She received her MFA, MA from the Litowitz Creative Writing Program at Northwestern University. Her poems have been published in Guernica Magazine, Poet Lore, Wilderness Magazine, The Offing, and Chicago Quarterly Review, among others. She's been nominated for a Pushcart Prize and a Best of the Net Award. Hughes has been a participant in Tin House Summer and Winter workshops, the Zora Neale Hurston Richard Wright Foundation workshops, as well as the Palm Beach Poetry Festival. Please give a warm welcome to E Hughes.
Hi, thank you for having me. I am just really blown away by everyone's vulnerability tonight. So I think I'm going to read. Jeremy particularly inspired me to read something very queer, which will not match the rest of my poems. But this is from a different project I'm working on. So this is called I Call Distraction a Bird for M. And by bird, perhaps I mean the way freckles move across the span of your body, as if it were a sky, or tossed like seeds sown across a damp landscape by an impartial God. As we lie here, I do not want to think about a man, but about entering, feeling the ridged space between soul and body. Tonight, you have touched me like a woman standing before a crowd plays a guitar, plucking the strings of me. With your eyes closed, the timbre of my body brought close to your chin until I give you what you want. The dissonant groan, my wailing. I want to call what you make of me a bird, a litany, or to be as sure as Adam had to have been when he fixed his tongue to name a thing. I do not want to name the shapes we make with our flawed language, to name what we are, woe to man. In this quiet, I call us firmament. I call us the veil. I call the unspeakable darkness God, torn until we stand in a shimmer of painful light. This is what we are becoming, flight, the feather, the wing, the bird in the morning as it sings. That's a very new poem, but I wanted, Jeremy really inspired me. I loved that piece a lot. But I still want to read a lot of more vulnerable poems, and the next poems I'm reading are from my first collection that's still unpublished, but that's vulnerable, that is vulnerable in the way of family, in my family history. And so this is the first poem out of that collection, and it's called Epilogue. If I write this, everything about us will be true. The turned over tables, the bat you threatened my brother with, the knife he threatened me with, the time I punched his asthmatic chest, wishing he would die. Within truth, there can be no metaphors for violence or love or violence committed in the act of love. Time is the enemy. Our former selves tacked to its walls, battered, tender, and sorry for all the ways we were wrong. I was wrong, caught in an endless negotiation with the past, with every possibility of escape lost by loving you despite. I am in a perpetual state of falling. Mother, I am trying to make you an archive, to latch onto the stories our bodies, a long blanket of stars tell, every truth bound in a subtle balm and in a subtle leverage of pain. We might not survive the span of my need to say this. Aporia, or family lore for Tanisha in Kenya. The complex was made to mirror a park. The greenery and open space made it seem the earth was our own. My mother worked in Saratoga in an office with white people, credit score finally above 500, and we could finally afford to live. Our neighbors stole the bunny we kept in a cage on the back porch and would leave the swimming pool each time we used our key to enter through the gate. We didn't care. Our music, our laughter, something we had earned by then. We lived there before I was old enough to be beaten, before the divorce. My father's mind not yet completely broken. In that home, my cousin and sister taught me to say the words apple and banana. Until I was 2, I would babble banana when I meant apple and apple when I meant banana, a cute quirk and inverse of a baby's tongue. What matters is that they fed me. My sister taught me the sidewalk was a runway. She practiced her walk outside of our apartment, the needle grass, the pentameter of her bounce, ascending almost as high as the medallion foothills in the background. She walked forward with her shoulders back as if she were a woman emerging from a fire without regret. My cousin cheered her on, said to me, "Boo-boo, this is what you do. This is how you do it. Walk like a supermodel. What matters is that they held me. I was their baby, just a year old, made sure I was with them wherever they were, teaching me everything they knew. The story goes that then when they were done pretending, they helped each other lift me with all their 8-year-old might onto their bike, me on the handlebars, my sister intending to pedal, my cousin would hop on the pegs when the wheels began to spin. They never began. I fell before swift movement became a gesture of loss. Isn't it like this when we try to carry the ones we've loved? You want to take them with you, even when you cannot sustain yourself. Looking back, our story tells me something of endings. The world will try to take everything you love. Hold, make taut your child muscles. Try with all your might to keep it. This is titled, "In San Jose, We Sliced Tomatoes," for Nana. Oh. Behind our mobile home, we tended weeds in a narrow patch of soil, just enough for tomato bushes to grow along wire cages and slight ribbons of sunlight. In the kitchen, you held the knife, said, "This is what my mama used to do," then reached into a ceramic bowl of salt, swirled your hand almost like God dusting sour crystals over the fruit. You said, "We used to grow our own food and catch jackrabbits with slingshots and rocks in the wood." I was only a child when you gave me this story and knew little of the ways of the past. I sat on my knees listening at the kitchen table and imagined you and your 8 siblings running through the deep green Aiken woods. The jackrabbit, his long limbs in a slow crawl, his fawn ears elongated for fear of being caught. Heard your siblings whisper, "Elsie, get in position." I imagine your small hands carrying the carcass to your mother. How pleased you must have been to have provided good meat, the same as you were when you placed that fat, fleshy, and half tomato in my hand, remembering. You were right. Home is where the heart is broken and buried. Now, as I think of you then, mouth full of tomatoes and stories, I retrace the vermilion steps of my memory, wonder why we let each other go. I want the past to tell me something different of our ending. History tells me this is too much to ask. This next one's titled Elegy for Julius Epson. What I remember is the morning brightly pouring in through the glass in the front door, the school bus only a few minutes away and you taking the time. My sister had taught me to grab the shoestrings by the ears like a bunny pulled from a hat, but it never worked. We sat on the floor in the living room. Meemaw never allowed us to sit in, loop, then swoop, then pull. Your motions slow enough for me to follow. You clapped when I got it. Pawpaw is proud of you. I think of those small moments now, almost 11 years after your burial, and wish I had the courage then to say what I can now. You were my only source of gentleness. The way you danced with my grandmother around the garage to Aretha calling her cakes, drank pop with the grandkids as we all pretended we were grown and drunk. The way you called my mother your stepchild daughter. How could I have known then we would end so soon? As I climbed onto the bus with my shoes tied, you watched as I rode away. My brother at your side in a diaper and white socks. The sun just beginning to careen over the Sierras as you waved goodbye with a cowboy hat on your head, a Budweiser in your hands, and a cigarette in your mouth, just beginning to burn. My mother at 21. Imagine what she must have been, the gap still between her teeth and hopeful. The reality of the future still foggy and at bay in the burgundy of her eyes, some cascading emerald light at the horizon of herself. She has just become a mother, still with enough of herself to give one daughter happiness close enough to touch like God's brown face during the act of prayer. I imagine it. The barely furnished apartment the mother and baby share with their relatives, the mattress and box springs on the carpeted floor, the long gray cabinets, in them just enough formula for the week. The mirrored coffee table bordered in brass and cluttered with loose change, blue magic, and a wide tooth comb. The faux ficus in the corner, the way dust collected on its leaves looked like cleft geodes in light. The year is 1985, and her grandmother is still alive. No one she loves yet has contracted the virus, has died by heart attack or overdose. My mother, when she was young, her jade hair permed and pressed into a bob, red lipstick finished around the curves of her lips. I can imagine her when she was young. Before. The night is an eruption of nebulas. A pipe is a globe of loss. The baby has no diapers and auntie had to bring some by. Women on the street scream and yell at motherfuckers. The men snore and groan on the curbside. You empty your pockets, bobby pins and dimes and lint on the dresser. The mirror with the baby's fingerprints on it. The lights aren't back on yet, but the baby's father comes back. You make love by candlelight. The woman from upstairs says, I fucked your man in your car. Finally, you get the courage to leave. Eviction comes first. Credit score plummets like an airplane. You make the baby a pool for her dolls with a ceramic bowl. Your mother says you can come home for a while. You make $4.25 an hour as a bank teller. The baby's father puts a red bow in her hair before you pick her up. He has always made you smile. The night is an eruption of nebulas. You pat the baby's back to get her to sleep. Shh, casual sirens fade. She is your reason for being until a man touches you. You call back the married man you think is the love of your life. He says, baby, on the answering machine. You make another life together in the only tenderness you know, then you make that life disappear without a name. You killed my son, the love of your life says. You think men will never know what it is to carry a life when you can't even burden your own. Also, sorry for my dog's interruption. You heard him drinking water. I have two more poems and then I think I'll be done. This one's titled Stop the Memory. My mother spent hours making sure my ponytails were perfect, that I had the knockers to match my outfits, saved money shopping at the canned food store for green beans and corn, spent 40 hours a week working with white men who would call her outside of her name, bitch. She provided the roof, no matter how minor or how imperfect it was over our heads. She tells me this now to prove she did her best at mothering, as if to redress the way she'd made my insignificant life then fathomless. Even now, she doesn't address the beatings, the way she would swing the belt like a woman with nothing to lose. Somehow, I want to forget the way her hand snatched me from a chair and swung at my child body like I were a grown man. The memory of my sister peeling our mother off of me, begging, mommy, please stop the memory of the way I loved my mother, would offer the weight of myself at the altar of her chest when she was too tired to push me away. Even now, she says, it was the depression that made me so angry, so unforgiving. But I've learned my lesson because God shattered a glass table when I screamed at him, take my life. Mother, strange is the lineage of our pain, its smallness, the rivers of its past, passed like milk between mothers and their daughters. Even now, I don't say mom. You lost your will to live, and I begged God to kill me too, begged God to take me from this violent arrangement of suffering. I asked him for your hands to be wrapped like a gentle lead around me, begged your hands be the ones to murder me. All right, sorry, I know it's heavy, but this is sort of not a better one, but in a different way. But this last one is titled Black Women Standing Ankle Deep in Pacific Water, and it's an ekphrasis poem. African American Museum and Library at Oakland, California in 2019. The likeness of four women is rendered monochrome on a white banner. The floral patterns on their cotton dresses and their straw sun hats ornamented in satin ribbons are obscured by shutter and light. Their long sleeves gather loosely at the elbow, giving time away. Perhaps the photo was taken in the 1920s or 30s, some 40 years before my grandparents became migrants. The women stand ankle deep in Pacific water. Perhaps on an eastern shore of the San Francisco Bay, hands pressed to their caps, careful not to let the Diablos winds catch their hats, careful not to allow a determined sun on their brown faces. It looks as if it were a clear day, perfect to capture this moment. A hill slowly ascending and waning, the sagebrush grasped in wind, blowing gracefully toward tightly packed sand, salt water rippling gently against the petite banks of the women's ankles. Each happiness seems simple. A warm day by water, miles from Jim Crow and history. Now, as I stand, my neck craned for my need, looking toward this past, I want these women to tell me something new of survival, of the cruel way light obscures pain. In this photo, I see mostly my dispossession, the buried story of the West's fathomless past, ordinary, opaque, with all of its rupturing. Thank you.
I'm completely blown away by your reading. It was just beautiful, but so and powerful. Like there were moments I was about to cry. And yes, vulnerable, but also universal. I mean, family, but also everybody's family. I really loved everything, every poem that you read. So thank you so much. And now I'm going to introduce our last reader, whose name is Amin Ahmad. Amin Ahmad was raised in India, and he worked as a banker and an architect before turning to fiction. As A.X. Ahmad, he is the author of 2 crime fiction novels, The Caretaker and The Last Taxi Ride. His essays and stories have been published in literary magazines and listed in Best American Essays. He won the 2020 University of Missouri's Chandra Prize for his short story collection, This Is Not Your Country. A former resident of Chicago, he now teaches creative writing at Duke University in Durham, North Carolina. Amin Ahmad, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Natalia. It's great to be virtually back in Chicago. I don't miss the weather. I've given away most of my winter clothes, but I really miss the people. And I have 3 people here from my former writing group. So it's really nice to see familiar faces and of course, Ignatius. So I'm just going to read part of a short story, the title of which is Lychees. And if you don't know what a lychee is, it's a fruit. I think we have in India, maybe elsewhere. It's got a hard shell, and inside is kind of very juicy, soft, delicious flesh. So the title of the short story is Lychees. The Air India 747 had flown a great distance, New Delhi, Chicago, 15 hours direct. And when land appeared, a cheer went up, and Diana Gonzalez joined the passengers as they crowded around the windows. The tourists from India seemed the most excited, while the American-born Indians hung back and looked bored. Mediating the 2 extremes were the techie Indians born in India, but with H-1 visas. They wore cheap, bright windbreakers and looked uncomfortable, as though they didn't belong anywhere. 18 months ago, when she left for India on a PhD research grant, Diana couldn't tell the groups apart, but now she could parse their differences with one expert look. In fact, her Indian seatmates had assumed that she, Diana, with her olive skin and black hair and faded green salwar kameez, was Indian too, and were disappointed when she told them, no, she was half Cuban, half Polish. She was here. She was from here, she said, pointing towards the earth. Here, Chicago, USA. But really, was she? The plane landed and the other passengers grabbed their suitcases and crowded into the aisles, but Diana remained in her seat, staring at the banks of dirty snow outside. This was March in Chicago? How had she forgotten? She heard Rahul's voice in her head. What is there in America for you? It's a frozen garbage heap where people die alone. The plane's doors hissed open and the Indian passengers surged anxiously ahead, clutching their passports, but Diana remained in her seat. An exhausted flight attendant plodded down the aisle and spoke to Diana in Hindi. Madam, do you need help deplaning? I think I made a mistake, Diana wanted to say. Please let me go back to Delhi with you. Of course, she did not say that. She smiled apologetically, grabbed her dusty backpack, and walked down the length of the empty plane. It was like getting married, but in reverse. There was no one waiting for her at the end of the aisle. Diana stood in the line for US citizens and made it easily through immigration, but she was stopped at customs by a young white guy in a crisp blue uniform. Ma'am, he said, frowning at her, hold up. Do you have any agricultural products, meats, cheeses, fruits? Diana abruptly remembered the bag of lychees at the bottom of her backpack. Rahul had given them to her for the plane ride, but she hadn't eaten a single one. She could not bear the thought of throwing them away. Hey, I heard the Cubs won. Deanna smiled brightly and pulled her hair back into a ponytail, a pretty gesture that men liked. That was last year. The young man's hand rested on a backpack. He squinted at her. You from Chicago? Southside. I was in India doing field work for my PhD. Watching the World Series over there really sucked. 1 billion people and me, the only Cubs fan. The young man laughed. Welcome home, he said, and waved her through. The automatic doors that led into the arrivals area were right in front of her, and the icy cold of Chicago seeped through them. She remembered the warmth of Rahul's body as they embraced at Delhi airport. He was unshaven, his white linen shirt hung out of his pants, and he smelled of cologne and desperation. He had said, "This is your decision, Diana. Always remember, I don't want you to go." An Indian family pushed by Diana, activating the automatic doors. They swung open, and there was good old Marnie waiting by a pillar, her round face beaming. Before Diana knew it, she was weeping and hugging her sister's soft, familiar body. Marnie hugged her back and said, there, it's okay. You're home now. You're home. It was early the next morning. Marnie was already dressed in her white nurse's uniform, but Diana was half asleep. She sat in the bay window of Marnie's tiny apartment, drank tea, and stared out at the gray, murky Chicago sky. What are these? Marnie crinkled up a snub nose and pointed into the back of the refrigerator. I thought you're not supposed to bring fruits and vegetables into the country. Yeah, you're not supposed to, but these were a present. They're lychees. Lychees? Ah, from the street kids. You must miss them. Yes, I do. The lychees were from Rahul's orchard in the hills, but Diana didn't correct her sister. She sipped her tea, sweetened with 4 spoons of sugar, a habit she had developed in India. I miss the kids a lot. Marnie nodded and shut the refrigerator door. With a big-boned Midwestern build and pale blonde hair, she belonged in Chicago. People never believed that Diana and Marnie were sisters. Marnie slowly pulled on her knee-length black parka, pushing one arm through and then the other. Didn't you say one street kid grew attached to some people and then he killed himself? Diana stared out of the window. Through a scrim of bare tree branches, she could see the rooftops of Logan Square. Rahul had said, Dee, why are you always so alone? Why can't you see that other people need you? Diana turned to her sister. That's a problem with all these European do-gooders. They get attached to the street kids and make promises. This boy, Chotu, he was 10. He was fine. Or as fine as you can be, I guess. But then these 2 German backpackers promised they'd take him home with them. Of course, they couldn't. Oh boy, that's tough. Marnie smiled and her round cheeks tightened. I gotta get going. Dee, are you sure you're okay? Me? I'm fucking freezing. It's like every molecule in my body has been swapped out, but it's good to be home. Take it slow, Dee. It'll take a while for your body to adjust. Marnie put a warm hand on Diana's shoulder. I'll be back early. We'll get Chinese and I want to hear everything. I really missed you. I'll be fine, don't worry. Marnie left. Diana stood in the bay window and waved down at her, and Marnie waved back, and then she waddled down the street, breath shrouding her face. She worked in the cancer ward at Cook County Hospital, and when her mother was sick, tubes coming out of her nose, Marnie was the one who had handled it all. Diana was in her first year of the PhD, and she'd used it as an excuse not to visit mom. She couldn't bear to see her mother so frail and unfocused, the same woman who with a will of iron had raised 2 daughters on a postal worker's income, the same woman who had drilled into them her view of the world. There is no place for weakness. Never let your guard down. Never depend on anyone. Do you hear me? Never. When Diana was in Delhi, she'd barely thought of those terrible days, but now it was all coming back. Diana remained at Marnie's bay window, but not one single person went by. Mornings in Delhi were an explosion of crows and traffic. From the window of her rooftop Barsati apartment, she could hear the chatter of the maids as they hung out wet laundry, and the neighborhood housewives filled the air with the tang of frying onions. Here it was like being wrapped in thick, soundless cotton wool. Rahul had said to her, "Why do you lie to your sister? Why won't you tell her about me? I thought you 2 were close." He had said, "I'll talk to my family. They'll have to accept you. I'm their only son." Diana took a hot shower and was sweating when she walked outside. The warmth didn't last. Within a block, she was chilled again, but it was worse now because of a clammy t-shirt. She walked down Milwaukee Avenue looking into the shop windows. The dusty old jewelry store was still there, but the Mexican department store was gone, the one where you could buy a doll, sheets, or a piñata. In its place was a brand new food co-op staffed by young people in kerchiefs and denim overalls. Well, not all change was bad. Fresh fruits and vegetables were probably a good thing. She passed two new coffee shops with gleaming blonde wood counters packed with hipsters hunched over laptops. Funny how the style, which had originated in Brooklyn or San Francisco, had spread all over the globe. There were coffee shops like this in Delhi too. Rahul had said, "Look at those fools. Cappuccino, chai latte, matcha smoothies. They're copies of copies of copies and they don't even know it. Come on, let's go to the chai stall on the corner and get the real stuff." She was faithful to Rahul even now. She hurried past the coffee shops, but she would have to go inside soon just to warm up. Then incredibly, she saw a sign, Chia Indian Cafe. It was probably some phony new age place, but when she stepped inside the large sunny room, she smelled the thick, tannic odor of chai. She took a seat at the counter next to a young Black man who was reading a book and felt a surge of kinship. He was clearly a grad student. She ordered chai and samosas and ate rapidly with her fingers, wiping away the red tamarind chutney that dribbled down her chin. The man stared at her. "Are the samosas," he said, smiling painfully, "any good? It's my first time here." "Excellent." She talked through a mouthful of potato filling. "It's the real thing. I'm impressed. And I should know. I just got back from India." The young man continued to stare at Diana. He wore a collared shirt under his blue V-neck sweater, and his round, gold-rimmed glasses gave him a harmless, nerdy air. And so she thought, fine, I'll talk to him. Why not? The young man's name was Christian. He said that he was in African-American studies at Northwestern. Like Diana, he had finished his coursework and then moved down to Logan Square to be away from the academic craziness. "So," Christian said, "what was India like? Life-changing?" He waited patiently for her to speak. His eyes were hazel and intensely alive. She liked that he waited, while Rahul would have said, "Well, what is it? Come on, Dee, don't be so wishy-washy." There was no way Diana could explain what India meant to her. She couldn't describe a small, cramped apartment in Old Delhi with its single shelf of books. She would be hard-pressed to describe the street kids she studied through Apna Bachche, a nonprofit which had tried to help them without reforming them, and especially Chotu with his ragged clothes and bright eyes, Chotu who had swallowed a bottle of rat poison. She could not describe how the other street kids had cried and tried to convince themselves that Chotu was with Bhagwan now, in heaven, eating his fill of food. She could definitely not talk about Rahul, the son of a fabulously wealthy Punjabi family. She had met him out in the field. He'd arrived in a chauffeured Land Rover, auditing the charities his family supported, and the connection was immediate. Within a week, they ended up in her apartment and headed straight for her small, hard bed. Afterwards, Rahul had, still naked, made her chai, carefully measuring out the milk and water and tea leaves, crunching the elaichi pods between his teeth. It was the most delicious chai she had ever tasted. She could not explain how all this had happened and continued to happen for over a year, even though Rahul was engaged to pale, haughty Indira, a wealthy heiress from a family of industrialists. She definitely couldn't explain why Rahul had fallen in love with her. Love. What the hell did that word mean anyway? That's it. Thanks.
Oh, what a place to end it. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. That was amazing. I'd like to take a minute just to thank all of our readers tonight. This was just some incredible work that you all shared, and and I mean, I think we should just take a minute to acknowledge how difficult it is to share your creative work in front of a bunch of people on Zoom. It's, you know, kind of weird, but they like such talent here. And I'm still in the midst of the pandemic, we're still able to gather and hear each other's work, and I feel very inspired, and I hope you do too. We'd like to do a Q&A with our readers. If you're able to stay, please do so. And you can just shout out any questions you have about their work, their writing process, what they're working on next, what the end of Amin's novel is going to be, you know, all the things that we're all wondering about.
Am I allowed to ask a question?